In the name of supporting Donald Trump, the right MAGA wing of the United States Supreme Court continues its assault on our civil liberties. We now, based on a brand new ruling that came out from the Supreme Court, we now live in a world where racial profiling is allowed and is not found to be a Fourth Amendment violation of our right not to be unduly searched or seized. This coming out of a California case, where else, in which Judge Frimpang, a federal district court judge, issued an injunction to stop the government from using as their reasonable suspicion, that's a term of art, using as reasonable suspicion just the fact that somebody is brown or speaks a different language or is hanging out in a Home Depot parking lot or is hanging out and doing certain types of dirty jobs. This can't be the reason you get a knock on your head or on your shoulder or on your car door or ripped out of your car and thrown to the ground by ICE or Border Patrol and asked, are you a U.S. citizen? And on the fly, the person has to prove it. For those of us that are lucky enough to be U.S. citizens, what are you carrying in your pocket that demonstrates to law enforcement that you are a U.S. citizen? Do you carry your birth certificate? Do you carry your passport? Perhaps we should laminate those two documents and wear them around our neck like a dog collar. Because people that just showed a driver's license and said, even though I'm black or brown and I speak Spanish and I'm waiting in a Home Depot parking lot or I'm working at a car wash, I'm an American citizen. We don't believe you. Whisked away. And to Brett Kavanaugh, the only MAGA who had the balls to write a concurrence, because this decision was one paragraph long, another shadow docket special by the United States Supreme Court, but Kavanaugh explained it for the rest of the right wing. And he said in one sentence, while it's unfortunate that somebody has to be detained and asked questions, we find the government has a greater interest in getting rid of illegal immigrants than the mere inconvenience of being stopped and asked a question. That completely does not comport with reality. The record below, which is what the trial court developed and what the Supreme Court should be ruling on, has, at least for the three named plaintiffs, a terrible, terrible dystopian view, Kafkaesque world where, boot-jacked and masked stormtroopers, shock troops, grab these people, don't ask any questions, get them to interrogation sites or throw them in the back of vans or throw them to the ground. That is what Brett Kavanaugh and the MAGA Supreme Court, that is the new landscape that they've created by this decision. Because it doesn't have any guidance to the courts. It doesn't have any guidance to Donald Trump. All he heard, along with Kristi Noem, is that they can continue to open up U-Hauls and have blacked, booted agents file out of the back and start tackling people in Home Depot parking lots under the name of immigration enforcement. I mean, they've already, off of this order, have already announced that they are going to take it up a notch and turbocharge their efforts of abusing civil liberties of people on the street. God help you if you're black or brown in Los Angeles, you happen to be speaking to your friend or family member in Spanish, and you happen to be in a Home Depot parking lot, because you are a target. Because you have no Fourth Amendment rights based on the United States Supreme Court's new decision. I'm Michael Popok, fired up. I'm here on Tuesday on Legal AF. Here's the new decision. It is in the case of Kristi Noem versus Pedro Vasquez Perdomo, coming up on appeal. Another exploitation of the shadow docket. Now, the decision, such as it is literally one paragraph. I will post this, as I post everything, on Legal AF Substack for you to read. All it effectively says is that the emergency application for a stay brought by the Trump administration Solicitor General is granted, blocking Judge Frimpang, her order, which takes away the ability to use as reasonable suspicion under the Fourth Amendment things like where you work, if you're on a bus stop, if you're at a car wash, if you're a day laborer, if you're speaking Spanish, and what you look like. And they said, no, continue to develop your case, Judge Frimpang, but we're going to lift your temporary injunction now, and all you heard was a collective yahoo by the Trump administration and Tom Homan, the border czar, to now go after human beings without worrying about the Fourth Amendment, the little thing called the Fourth Amendment. And so what we have here, let me read to you, since I just told you what the entirety of the order is. And the problem with that is not only does it not explain to the American people the position of the United States Supreme Court in a way where they can at least say, well, I may disagree with it, but at least I understand the jurisprudence. I understand the logic. Nothing. That's the problem with the shadow docket. You get 1 paragraph. Then you get 12 pages from Brett Kavanaugh trying to justify it. Let me read to you first from Justice Sotomayor, because she's in dissent with Kagan and Ketanji Brown Jackson. And I'm going to do it a little bit out of order. Her last paragraph on page 21 of her dissent says the Fourth Amendment against illegal search and seizure protects every individual's constitutional right to be free from arbitrary interference by law enforcers. After today, that may no longer be true for those who happen to look a certain way, speak a certain way, and appear to work a certain type of legitimate job that pays very little, because this is unconscionably irreconcilable with our nation's constitutional guarantees. I dissent. She goes on to talk about what, like a good judge, she talked about why Brett Kavanaugh is saying in one sentence, well, the slight inconvenience of being tapped on the shoulder and asked a question. That's not what's happening, Brett Kavanaugh. In the streets? Are you in the streets? People are being tackled, hogtied, separated from their friends and family, brought to black ops centers for interrogation. That's the Fourth Amendment world you just created. Lawless world that you just created. This is what Judge Sotomayor says on page 1 of her dissent. Instead of allowing the district court, the lower court, to consider these troubling allegations in the normal course, a majority of this court decides to take this once extraordinary step of staying the district court's order. That decision is yet another grave misuse of our emergency docket. We should not have to live in a country where the government can seize anyone who looks Latino, speaks Spanish, and appears to work a low-wage job, rather than stand idly by while our constitutional freedoms are lost. I dissent. She then goes through all of the stories about Jason Gavidia, who is a U.S. citizen, who masked guards told him to stop, asked him if he was an American 3 separate times, unsatisfied. They asked him for the name of the hospital he was born in. When he couldn't remember quick enough, they racked a rifle, took Gavidia's phone, pushed him up against a metal gated fence, put his hands behind his back and twisted his arms, and released him, only offering up his real ID, a real ID that was never returned to him. And so on and so on. That's not a minor inconvenience, Justice Sotomayor. That's you ignoring the record developed below by the trial court judge in its entirety. She then reminds everybody, including her brethren on the Supreme Court, what the Fourth Amendment is all about. On page 10 of her dissent, the Fourth Amendment thus prohibits exactly what the government is attempting to do here: seize individuals based solely on a set of facts that describe a very large category of presumably innocent people. As the judge continues, justice continues, as the district court correctly held, the 4 factors, apparent race or ethnicity, speaking Spanish or English with an accent, location, and type of work are no more indicative of illegal presence in the country than of legal presence. Yes, I live in Miami. Plenty of Spanish-speaking people hanging out in Home Depot and near car washes who are here legally. The factors are also in no way reflect the kind of individualized inquiry the Fourth Amendment demands. Well, it no longer demands it. Kavanaugh, here's how Kavanaugh puts it effectively for the majority, although the majority is not heard from because they didn't issue an opinion. He starts by saying the government sometimes listen to how he just describes people being thrown to the ground, arms behind the back, and hogtied and interrogated. Here's what he says about it on page 2. He's living in a different, magical thinking world. The government sometimes makes brief investigative stops to check the immigration status of those who gather in locations where people are hired for day jobs, who work or appear to work in such jobs as construction, landscaping, agriculture, or car washes that often do not require paperwork and are therefore attractive to illegal immigrants and who do not speak much, if any, English. By the way, there's no constitutional requirement that you speak English on a regular basis in order to be an American citizen or have proper immigration status. If the officers learn that the individual they stopped is a U.S. citizen or otherwise lawfully in the U.S., they promptly let the individual go. That is a 180 degree recanting and contradiction of the record developed by the trial judge. That's why emergency dockets suck. That's why shadow dockets should not be used for such important constitutional issues. In a shadow docket, you don't even have the complete record. The whole thing's on a short track. You got 2 briefs, no oral argument, and a 1-paragraph decision. That's why Sotomayor said this is yet another example of the exploitation of the shadow docket by the Trump administration with willing complicity by the MAGA right wing of the court. I mean, she didn't say that last part like that, but you get my point. So now we live in a world, subject to what Judge Frimpang does, with now a turbocharged Trump Homeland Security chasing people in the streets through farms and factories and fields, through car washes and Home Depot parking lots, without having any regard for the Fourth Amendment, which has just been effectively ripped out of the Constitution with a I mean, the Fourth Amendment was going to die. I would have thought, rest in peace, Fourth Amendment. I would have thought it would have had a bigger funeral and burial by the Supreme Court, at least over 20 or 30 pages, than 1 paragraph. So what do we do about it? I always like to leave on a hopeful note. What do we do about it? Okay, got to get control of Congress. I mean, there's no 2 ways about it. I don't care whether you love your Democratic, non-Republican MAGA representative that's running for office. If you don't vote to return and restore the balance of power, you've seen what the first 10 months it looks like. Wait till you see what the back half of the Trump term, the back 9 of the Trump term looks like, without an aggressive, muscular Senate and House controlled by Democrats. That's it. That means we got to protect voting rights. We got to make sure you're registered. We got to make sure your friends are registered. We got to jump through all the hoops that are now required in order to use mail-in balloting, whatever it takes. We got to fight the fight about maps and about congressional seats. And we got to support those that are in the courtrooms, which is what we do here every day on Legal AF. I'm glad you're here. Take a minute. I'm posting this on Legal AF Substack now. Pick it up there. Become a paid member of Legal AF Substack. That keeps all the content coming to you here on Legal AF and beyond. Also, while you're here, hit the subscribe button for Legal AF YouTube. That's free. No paywall. We just need your support and the subscriber base in order to continue to grow what we're doing here. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popok. And I got some big news for our audience. Most of you know me as the co-founder of Midas Touch's Legal AF and the Legal AF YouTube channel, or as a 35-year national trial lawyer. Now, building on what we started together on Legal AF, I've launched a new law firm, the Popok Firm, dedicated to obtaining justice through compassionate and zealous legal representation. At the Popok Firm, we are focused on obtaining justice for those who have been injured or damaged by a life-altering event by securing the highest dollar recoveries. I've been tirelessly fighting for justice for the last 35 years, so my own law firm organically building on my Legal AF work just feels right. And I've handpicked a team of top-tier trial fighters and settlement experts throughout all 50 states known as big auto injury attorneys who have the know-how to beat heartless insurance companies, corporations, government entities, and their attorneys. Big Auto's attorneys working with my firm are rock stars in their respective states. lawsuits and collectively responsible for billions of dollars in recoveries. So if you or a loved one have been on the wrong side of a catastrophic auto, motor vehicle, rideshare, or truck accident, suffered a personal injury, or been the victim of medical malpractice, employment harassment or discrimination, or suffered a violation of your civil and constitutional rights, then contact the Popok firm today at 1-877-POPOK-AF or by visiting my website at www.thepopokfirm.com and fill out a free case evaluation form. And if we determine that you have a case and you sign with us, we don't get paid unless you do. The Popok firm, fighting for your justice every step of the way.